Well, hello there. According to my screen here, it says that I am on live now. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell. How are you all doing today? And welcome to another installment of Chuck's Captivating Chat. Here it is already, July 1st. My birthday is 1 week from today. And getting old. um, Thinking of a certain Beatles song that is going to be applying to me. But in any respect, it's good to be here as always. I'm just still adjusting my camera here a bit. Um, it's hotter than Hades here. In vulgar terms, I've heard people say it is hotter than the butt crack of the devil. But you just have to live with it, And I spend almost nothing on heating in the wintertime. I live here in Los Angeles. I rarely need it in the wintertime, but I more than make up for it in the summertime when I have to crank up my air conditioning and run it nonstop. I live in a second floor apartment in a very cute little building. It was built back in 1941. Art Deco fixtures. I have an Art Deco fireplace, crown molding, hardwood floors, French windows. I just love it. But it is an old building. And the upstairs gets like an attic in the summertime. There's no cross breeze or anything. I have to just run that air conditioner, and it costs a fortune. When I have people saying to me, well, I don't like air conditioning. Well, I love my air conditioning. Oh, Diane, hey there. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it so much. Well, I'm just checking here. See, got my chat going here. I should have been a little better prepared before starting, but here I am. It's been a busy day. I've been taking care of a lot of responsibilities. Just really say, fix my hair a little bit there. Okay, you're seeing me, flaws and all. I thought I would talk about some of my videos I've posted this week. I have a few more to post, but I've already been getting a response on a video I did about Rita Hayworth. Oh, Kathy, hi there. Thank you for joining me. I was very close friends with the late actress Evelyn Keyes, who was a big movie star back in the 1940s. She played Sue Ellen in Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister. And I've always taken pride in the fact that I can honestly say to people, I have a friend who was in Gone with the Wind. And so she was just full of the greatest stories. We had the most incredible conversations. She wrote 2 autobiographies, the most famous being Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister. It was a big bestseller. In fact, it was considered one of the first of the tell-all autobiographies, the ones where just everything is up for grabs. And, it was quite sensationalized back in the 70s when this book came out. It was even considered a little bit scandalous because she spoke so frankly about things such as her sex life, her many affairs. And it was when I got to know Evelyn, I realized that it was just Evelyn being truthful and forthright in the only way she knew to be. And she was a big believer that sexuality and such, that was just life. And why not talk about it openly? Even her marriages, her 4 marriages, each one lasted roughly 4 to 5 years. And she said to me, you know what, Chuck, they were legalized love affairs. That's what they were. Oh, hey, Ward. Did Evelyn ever talk about Artie Shaw and Lana Turner? Oh, God, where do I even begin there? Yes, she did. She didn't talk so much about Lana Turner, but as you know, she was married to Artie Shaw. So yes, she told me a lot about Mr. Shaw. And the thing that was really intriguing was, even though they separated and went their own ways after a few years of formal marriage, they did not formally divorce for many years later, and mostly because uh, I used to figure, well, I don't plan to marry again. They already had 8 wives. I think Evelyn had her fill of husbands, and they just saw no point in it. And they finally did do a formal divorce, but they remained friends. And it was funny because Artie had a very volatile temper. He was well known for that. Evelyn just accepted that about him, but I think she was less tolerant of his BS after they had gone their own ways and they were both in their senior years. And some days she would speak glowingly of Artie, and other days I'd say, well, how's Artie doing? She'd go, I'm not talking to that effing asshole. But all in all, they remained fond of each other. And I think I read somewhere, I never confirmed this because this was after Evelyn's death, but they had an agreement where in each other's wills, she would lead everything to Artie, he would lead everything to her, depending on who died first. Well, Artie died first, and I guess Evelyn won. I don't know. That's an awful way to put it. I love that lady so much. Wow, there's so many things I could say about Artie Shaw. I have told this story before, and while this doesn't involve Lana Turner, it involves Ava Gardner and Artie Shaw and Evelyn, and it's a story I can't remember if I ever told this. I may have told it in a video. I may not have told it live, but our Ava, of course, was one of the 8 wives of Artie Shaw, and in the back of her autobiography, she printed an open letter. I'm paraphrasing this terribly, but it was basically, Dear Artie, wherever you are in the world, I just want to say some things to you. I want to thank you for enriching my life. I want to thank you for educating me and making me a better person. That was basically the gist of it. It was a full-page letter. It was quite beautiful. And I saw Evelyn one day and I said, did Artie ever know about that letter that Ava Gardner published to him in the back of her autobiography? And Evelyn said, well, I don't know, but I'll go ask him. And she came back a few days later and she said, well, Artie said he'd like to see it. So that was the response, whether he was aware or not, he wanted to see it. So I loaned my copy of Ava Gardner's autobiography to Evelyn, and she took it to Artie Shaw and then brought it back to me a few days later. Didn't have any comment on anything. I guess whatever Artie had to say, it was private. But when I mentioned it initially to Evelyn, she was very touched. And she said, oh, that's so sweet. That is so sweet of dear Ava. So sweet. And she said, well, basically, Artie did that for me. He insisted that I get an education. He insisted that I read books about literature and philosophy and history and music appreciation and so forth. She said it was like being in college with him, and she was always grateful to him for that. And also Artie persuaded her to venture into psychoanalysis, which Evelyn was always grateful for. So she understood where Ava was coming from. So that's my little story there. I can't recall if Evelyn ever talked about Lana Turner. I know from a Judy Garland biography or two, it was rather sad because Artie supposedly, if this is to be believed, was seeing young Judy Garland. This was when she was maybe 19 years old or so. And one morning, Judy was reading her newspaper and found out that Artie had eloped with Lana Turner, and she was just beside herself with grief and despair over it. So that's what I know there about that. So anyway, I should look at my comments here. Yes, I got the book back, Ward. I can't tell you how many times I have loaned books back in the era when we used to have record albums, CDs, cassette tapes. I can't tell you how many of those things I never got back. No, Evelyn was very good about getting the book back to me. But I guess I might as well fess up that I was not good. God, I can't believe I'm admitting this publicly, but I think Evelyn, if her spirit is here right now, she's having a nice laugh about it. Evelyn, in her latter years, took tremendous pride in writing. That became her great love over acting. After her film career had more or less ended, she started writing, and she wrote a novel called I Am a Billboard. I loved her 2 autobiographies. And by the way, she loaned me her personal copies of her 2 autobiographies to read. And I got to talk to her on the phone each night. I would read a few chapters and then discuss it with her. And then she'd say, okay, now I'm going to tell you the stuff I couldn't put in the book. And that was a thrill, because I love celebrity autobiographies, but this was like the full experience, to be able to actually talk to the author and subject of the autobiography on a regular basis. But my big confession, Evelyn wrote a novel. I think it was around 1971. It was her first book, I Am a Billboard. And because I loved her autobiography so much, I asked her if I could please borrow it. And she loaned it to me. And I still have it. I never got around to returning it to her. And this was, maybe a year and a half, 2 years before she started to show signs of Alzheimer's and dementia, and she had to go to a nursing home. And yes, I'm embarrassed to admit it, I never returned her book to her. But I treasure having it. I wish it was signed, but I have it. I have her own copy of her beloved novel. And if this is not audacious of me to say, because I feel her spirit with me all the time. I feel her like, Chuck, I left that for you. I wanted you to have my book. I really feel that, because this was one of the things that bonded Evelyn Keyes and me. Initially, yes, it was old Hollywood, talking about old Hollywood stories, the movie stars, talking about her romantic conquests. The time she told me she turned down a one-night stand with Errol Flynn. And I was like, Evelyn, were you out of your mind? She goes, oh, Chuck, he was so vacuous and boring and superficial. I had no desire. I said, yes, but for a one-night stand, it was Errol Flynn. But she explained to me that was the night. It was some event in Hollywood, and that was the night she met John Huston, director John Huston. And of course, she married John Huston. And she said to me, you know what, John Huston, he was skinny, gawky, not the most attractive man in the world. And here I had Errol Flynn to the other side of me. I had John Huston on this side of me. John Huston was so intelligent and so engaging and so captivating. And what I really loved about him, he made me laugh. And when a man can make me laugh, that wins me over. So that's the story. That's why she didn't go home with Errol Flynn. Let's see. Kathy said, when did I meet her? I met her this was when I was living in West Hollywood, and it was in a sort of a hybrid vitamin shop, drugstore type of thing in West Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I didn't initially recognize her, but it was somebody else talking to her and goes, oh, you're Evelyn Keyes, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, because ever since I was a teenager, I had loved the Jolson story. The movie about, obviously, Al Jolson's life, which starred Larry Parks and Evelyn Keyes, where she was the leading lady in the film, and she was playing a fictitious version of Ruby Keeler. And it had to be fictitious because Ruby Keeler refused adamantly to allow herself to be portrayed in the movie, to have her name, her likeness, anything in this movie. So they had to create the character of Julie Benson, who was also a Broadway dancer who came out to Hollywood with her luck in movie musicals. That was about as far as it went. And of course, the marriage to Al Jolson. And they came up with this ridiculous plot at the end of the movie that for some reason 1940s audiences bought about how the marriage ended. It was because she had persuaded Al to give up his career and retire so he could spend his time with her. And Al, she's at this benefit with Al, and Al gets up on stage and just starts singing and singing. It was just his life. It was who he was. And Julie Benson sees this, and she goes to the coat check stand, takes her ermine mink, and walks out of his life and realizes he is more married to his show business career. Well, that's not quite how it worked with Ruby Keeler and Al Jolson, but it made for a cute little 1940s Technicolor candy box musical. Let's see. I'm looking at comments here. She loaned the Billboard novel to you, and you did what with it? You're frozen. Do you think Miss Keys might be getting back for whatever you did? Well, I hope I'm not still frozen right now. It may have been something with the Wi-Fi or something. I don't know. No, I have the book here. I treasure the book. And I was just saying that I feel her spirit saying, I'm happy you have the book. I left it to you. Because Evelyn, as I'm getting back to what I was going to say, we initially formed a bond over my love of old Hollywood, old movies. And here was a bona fide old time movie star who was now my friend, who could tell me all these personal stories. So beyond that, we both loved writing. She would just light up when she would talk about her writing. She used to write a newspaper column. She told me about her first novel and how she wanted to write another, and her writing her autobiographies. And she showed how she just loved sitting in front of her. She called it a word processor. Maybe that's what it was in those days rather than a computer. But she said, I sit in front of my word processor and I just lose myself in that world. It's what I love. It's where I'm at my happiest. And I love to write also. So we talked a lot about that. And she was always encouraging me to go forth with my writing more. So I feel like she wanted me to have her book as a reminder of that. But the circumstances, of course, where I was just really negligent in returning it to her and not returning it to her. And I'm admitting that to the world for the first time ever right now. It's interesting when I do this show every Monday. It's very freeform. I have a notebook here. I just jot down a few ideas to discuss. I don't do any big preparation, but many times the show takes a life of its own. I did not know the show was going to be about Evelyn Keyes, but that's great. That's great. I love talking about her. It was one of the true honors of my life. When I was growing up as a kid in a little town in Virginia, and I was just getting my hands on every movie book I could get my hands on, every biography, every autobiography of stars, watching the old movies on the Late Show, just falling in love with all of this. When you live in a little town in rural Virginia, this Hollywood and all this is like the planet Mars or Venus. It's so far away. So when I finally got to move out to Los Angeles, from day one, I was like a kid in the biggest candy store in the world. But my big sister always knew what an old Hollywood fanatic I was. And when I started telling her about Evelyn, she goes, well, it was just inevitable. You were going to make friends with at least one of them. And so I did. Let me see. There's another comment here from Ward. Ruby Keeler got the legal eagles to stop her being portrayed since she didn't want her kids to consider she'd been married to, what does it say there? Married to, This won't scroll up, so I can't read the rest of it. Married to someone with whom she adopted a son. So yeah, that's interesting, Ward. Thank you for that. I apologize. I don't know why my commentary froze on me here. There's weird stuff going on today. I've had a lot of people even talk astrologically that a lot of strange things are happening right now. Almost like a retrograde or something. So I guess that's what's going on right now. So please forgive me, Ward. And Ward, by the way, I thank you again for your lovely comments to me all the time. I apologize I haven't been able to keep up and answering you, but please know it means a lot to me. I love your authority and your thoughtfulness. So thank you very much. But what was I going to say about Evelyn? Evelyn, so many times would just drop these great little stories. Oh, wait, I saw another comment pop up here. If she would light up when talking about working, you light up when talking about her. Oh, thank you for saying that. Well, it's very easy to light up when talking about somebody I love. And I loved her dearly. I feel like I was one of the luckiest people in the world to get to know her, because I can remember as a teenager watching her on the talk shows, when she was promoting her autobiography, Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister. And even then I was enthralled with her. And of course the Jolson story. So I get to know her. I got to call her on the phone at night, talk to her and see her and just shoot the breeze. But she would drop these great little stories, like one of her birthday parties. John Huston threw a birthday party for her, and Evelyn ever so nonchalantly told me that Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland, that's right, Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland walked up to her table and together sang Happy Birthday. And Evelyn was just so nonchalant, almost tossed it off. And I'm like, Evelyn, you had Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland sing to you. She goes, yeah. And then she goes, oh, and one of the guests at the party was this young starlet named Marilyn Monroe. Like, yes, she, this was around 1948. I think she had just become Marilyn after having been Norma Jean or something. This was like the days when she was seeing Johnny Hyde, the agent. In fact, that's a story. I've told this before. But Evelyn told me it was a New Year's Eve party in Beverly Hills. And this was a big, lavish, star-studded affair. People like Clark Gable, Barbara Stanwyck, Joan Crawford. I mean, we're talking Hollywood royalty was at this party, at this home in Beverly Hills. And she said, fashionably late, this person arrived. And it was young Marilyn Monroe on the arm of her agent and allegedly her lover, Johnny Hyde. And Evelyn said she had never seen anything like this before, because you have to keep in mind, this was a room full of major, major film stars, people who were not easily swayed by this sort of thing, But Evelyn said when Marilyn entered the room, the whole room hushed quiet. And Evelyn said Marilyn was so regal and so poised in the way she walked into the room. And there was everybody. Evelyn said it was incredible. People like Gable and Joan Crawford and people like that. People were like, who is that? Who is that girl? And Evelyn said everybody there knew that young woman was going to become a major, major movie star very soon. So that was a story she told me. But I guess in wrapping up, oh yes, Ward, thank you, Jolson. That was the comments are scrolling up now, and now I can see that. It was closed off, and it looked like it was saying she was married to John something. That's why I was confused there. Yeah, I figured Jolson. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Oh, I might as well tell this before I get to the whole point of what I was going to talk about in the first place, which now will be my closing story. Evelyn, in her latter years, well, I should say at the midpoint of her career, she was like in her 50s at this point. And of course, Ruby Keeler did No No Nanette on Broadway. It was a big, big revival, major hit on Broadway. And it was like a big comeback hurrah for Ruby Keeler. Well, they wanted to do a national tour of this, which Miss Keeler did not want to do. So someone had the bright idea of casting Evelyn Keyes, since she had, quote unquote, played Ruby in a movie. And of course, Evelyn didn't have anything going on in her career at the time, and she loved the idea of tap dancing and singing on stage. So she accepted the role. And she said it was during rehearsal, Ruby Keeler stopped by or something and really gave her the cold shoulder and walked off. And I'm remembering now, that wasn't the first time that happened. I just remembered another story. It was when they were filming the Jolson story around that time. I think Evelyn said she was at a nightclub or something, and Ruby Keeler encountered her. And again, it was walked off and I didn't say a word, just cold as ice. So Miss Keeler was not fond of Evelyn. Bad blood, what have you. So I guess I could tell that story right now. But anyway, I was going to get back to my original story, which is now going to be my closing story, because I posted a video the other day about Rita Hayworth and her descent into Alzheimer's. Great tragedy right there. And I even titled my video after what Evelyn had said to me. Why did this have to happen to dear sweet Rita? Evelyn and Rita Hayworth had a close friendship that went all the way back to the 1940s in Columbia Studios, where they, of course, were both under contract. Rita was the bigger star of the two, of course, but Evelyn was doing okay for herself. She was starring in movies. But where they bonded was the hair and makeup department, because that was back in the days when actresses had to show up at the studio, I think around 6 o'clock in the morning. They had to get their hair washed and set. They had to get their nails done. They had to have makeup done. Sometimes it involved body makeup. It could be a huge production. I would imagine some actresses might have had to have been there before 6 in the morning. But she said that she and Rita would sit together under the hairdryer, and they'd be having their nails done and everything, and they would be telling each other the latest gossip and just chit-chatting away. And Evelyn said to me, Rita was the sweetest soul. She did not have a mean bone in her body. She was almost innocent, almost like a little girl. And she said, oh, Chuck, you should have watched Rita when she walked. It was like having a spool of satin ribbon and unfurling it. That's how Evelyn said it. It's like unfurling satin ribbon forward. That was how Rita Hayworth moved and how she walked. Evelyn said the most poised woman she'd ever known in her life, but just so sweet, so gentle. And they had lost touch, and they'd gone their separate ways. Evelyn even lived for a few years in Spain with Artie Shaw. And it was sometime in the mid-70s, after living on the East Coast for a number of years, Evelyn made the decision she wanted to move back to Los Angeles. And she got here. And I remember, God, I don't want to get off track here, but I remember one of the stories she told me. She was at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And this was when Evelyn was having to get used to being a middle-aged woman, which we all have to adjust to in one way or another in our lives if we're lucky enough to live long enough. And she acknowledged that. But, she'd been a very beautiful woman, and it was hard for her to, lose her looks and be older. And she said she was sitting at the pool at the Beverly Hills Hotel and seeing all these beautiful young women in their bikinis walking around. And Evelyn was sitting there thinking, it's going to happen to you too. And I remember when I was reading the autobiography, because this was like 30 years after the fact, I thought, well, I guess it's already happened to them. But anyway, Evelyn very much wanted to see her dear friend Rita Hayworth again. And a friend set up something, but the friend did not tell Evelyn what was going on with Rita. So Evelyn arrives and sees Rita looking lovely as ever in the backyard of the house where she had been directed. And she goes out, Rita, it's so beautiful to see you. It's so wonderful. And she said, Rita turned around, just glassy eyed, lost, and a fog. And Evelyn's going, Evelyn's going, Rita, it's me. It's me. It's Evelyn. It's Evelyn. And she said, Rita went, Evelyn. Yes, Evelyn Keyes. And Rita was like, oh, Evelyn Keyes. Anyway, she was just out of it, deep in Alzheimer's. And Evelyn told me it was everything she could do not to break down in hysterical tears. So she spent some time with Rita and did her best. And she said, I was just furious with that friend for not telling me and not preparing me for this. But that's when she said to me, of all the beautiful, wonderful people in this world, why did this happen to dear, sweet Rita? And Evelyn went on to say to me that Rita's great tragedy, you know, this is how she phrased it to me. She said, women like Jean Harlow, Marilyn Monroe, they died at the peak of their beauty and their fame, and their legend continued. And I'm just quoting what Evelyn said, and I'm paraphrasing it, but she said Rita's tragedy is she got older, she lived, she got older, she outlived her career, she outlived her great fame, and she descended into Alzheimer's. That's how Evelyn put it to me. But of course, we all know Rita's legend. Nothing is ever going to tamper with that. Kathy, you're saying, why didn't they warn her? Well, that's what Evelyn said to me. She could not understand why she had not been warned beforehand. That's how she recounted the story to me. And she even felt it was a bit cruel that she had not been prepared. I don't know, maybe it was a case where the friend had good intentions and thought maybe they were protecting Evelyn some way. I don't know what the logic was there, but that's how she put it to me. So anyway, does anybody else have a question out there before I wrap this all up? I'm just seeing, did we get all the comments here? Yeah, this was delightful. It really warms my heart to talk about Evelyn Keyes. And, you know, I guess it's even appropriate that I bring this up about her because July 4th is the anniversary of her death. And I remembered when I saw the obituary in the paper, I thought, now that is so Evelyn. That this is a woman who was so full of life and treated life like a celebration. And I thought, well, now that is just like Evelyn to die on a day where there are going to be fireworks all over the country in the sky, almost like a celebration, a bon voyage. I think she would have smiled about that. She would have liked that. And she might have joked, yes, the fireworks were for me. Yeah. Oh, Lord, I'm sorry. That's happened to so many of your mother's friends. Yeah, I've had some dear friends it's happened to. It's one of the cruelest things to watch. And as one friend said to me, it's like a very slow death. It's like you're losing them already. They may not have physically gone yet, but you've already lost them. Yes, Lord, you're right. Miss Keyes was right to be livid with the friend. Yeah, that's how she felt. When she was talking to me about it, I could tell she was still hurt and angry about it, but she cared more about Rita. And yes, I mean it's sad, but ultimately the legacy lives on. Sometimes I love to pull up clips of musical numbers with Rita Hayworth on YouTube. And she just always lifts your spirits. Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire was once asked, who was your all-time favorite dance partner? And he said it was Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth. And I've watched some of their clips together, and I see it. I see it. There's just, even with all those wonderful clips with Ginger Rogers and Eleanor Powell, and I forget who else he danced with, he even partnered with Gene Kelly once, there is just a different dimension. There's something so natural, so almost, I realize it's an illusion, it's anything but effortless what they did, but it's almost like effortless. It's like what Evelyn said about Rita and the satin ribbon being unfurled outward. That's what the dancing was like with Fred Astaire and Rita Hayworth. Watch your clips and celebrate Rita, and let's celebrate Evelyn too. Yeah. So I'm going to wrap the show up right now. If nobody has any other questions, I just thank you all so much for joining me. I thank you all for your comments, your questions, your support. I'm deeply grateful. Oh, here's something that popped up. Miss Keys went out the same as John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. That's right. I forgot that they died on the 4th of July. I don't know if they got fireworks, but Evelyn definitely got her fireworks. This one's asking, how is Sasha? You know something? She's doing great right now, but we had a little bit of a scare yesterday, now that you mention it. And maybe this is good that I'm bringing this up, because this could happen to somebody else. On the back of my flat screen television, those little holes in the back, like little air holes for the speakers or whatever you want to call them. Sasha, I heard her crying, and I went back. Her claw had gotten caught in there, and her paw was stuck, and she was frantic and hysterical, and I thankfully got her loose. But that shook up both of us, because it never occurred to me that such a thing like that could happen, and thank God I was home when it happens. So I just say that as a word of caution. Anybody, look for things like that they can get their claws caught in and things. You just never know. So otherwise, Sasha is great. She's in my kitchen right now. She's in the windowsill soaking up these wonderful Los Angeles rays that we're having right now. We're having a big heat wave right now, and they're saying the weather, it's going to get a lot hotter. I hope you all have a fabulous 4th of July. I'm going to the Hollywood Bowl. Harry Connick Jr. is going to perform, the LA Philharmonic, and one of the biggest fireworks shows in the nation. It's always a treat to go there. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I just send my love to you, and I will see you next Monday. Next Monday's my birthday. But I'll do a show, and I'll see you then. So goodbye for now, and please like and subscribe my channel, Chuck's Captivating Chronicles.